What was the biggest thing your parents hid from you? I always felt like my parents didn't really love me. My mom constantly compared me to my siblings, asking why I couldn't be more like them. My siblings weren't any better. They'd joke that I wasn't even supposed to be born. My mom never denied it. She'd just shrug and say, "You were an accident." My dad wasn't much better. He worked a lot and rarely showed his emotions. He stayed quiet during those conversations, and I assumed he felt the same way as everyone else. When my brother left for college, my mom told me to clean out his room and move everything to the attic. I didn't argue. While packing, I found an old box shoved in the corner labeled kid notes. I thought it was just random doodles or school projects, but inside I found 3 envelopes, each with one of our names written in my dad's handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope with my name on it. The moment I started reading, I broke down in tears. He wrote about how beautiful I was and how he believed I'd succeed no matter what path I chose. He said every room lit up when I walked in, and he was proud to call me his daughter. It wasn't long or elaborate, but it was everything I never knew I needed to hear. I sat there in the attic for what felt like hours, clutching that letter and crying. All the things I thought he never noticed about me were there, written in his own words. When I finally pulled myself together, I carefully put the letter back in the box. I never told my dad I found it. I didn't need to. Just knowing how he truly felt was enough. Neighbors, what's the most traumatizing thing that ever happened to you? After moving into our new home, I expected a peaceful life with my 2 daughters, but my neighbor's 15-year-old son, who has Down syndrome, shattered that peace. For months, he's been breaking into our yard. At first, his parents apologized and promised to keep an eye on him, but eventually, they stopped caring. He would drag a ladder from their shed, climb over our 6-foot fence, and try to let my dogs out. To keep my dogs safe, I padlocked both gates. Whenever he got stuck in the yard, he'd scream and cry until his parents came to climb the fence and retrieve him. Last week, things escalated. While I was at work, my oldest daughter called me in tears. He had broken in again and was hammering at the gate, trying to break the lock. His parents weren't home, and she didn't know what to do. I told her to let the dogs out to keep him calm until I got back. 15 minutes later, my doorbell camera alerted me to motion in the backyard. I opened the app and froze. The boy was standing at the edge of our pool, staring into the water. My pit bull was circling him, barking. Panicked, I sped home as fast as I could. When I arrived, my daughter was outside holding the dogs back, tears streaming down her face. The boy was still at the pool's edge, his feet dangling in the water. Speaking softly, I coaxed him away from the pool and carefully walked him back to his house. His parents finally arrived, looking annoyed. I gave them a stern warning. This wasn't just about trespassing anymore, it was about safety. Today could have ended in tragedy. I told them to secure their yard, or I'd involve the authorities. 2 weeks later, I saw them installing taller fences and locking their gates. He hasn't been back since. What immediately tells you someone is a trashy parent? It was my birthday party, the kind where you invite the whole class because you're 8, and that's just what you do. My parents went all out, but one guest, Jason, and his mom turned the day into something I'd never forget, for all the wrong reasons. Jason was overweight, and both he and his mom arrived with an unsettling energy. His mom planted herself at the food table, piling her plate sky high while shooting side eyes at anyone who glanced her way. Jason bulldozed through every activity, shoving kids aside to get to the front of the line and sneaking candy into his pockets when he thought no one was looking. When it was time for cake, my mom brought it out with candles lit, and everyone began to sing. Mid-song, Jason's mom loudly interrupted. "Make sure Jason gets the first piece. He's a growing boy." My mom, ever polite, handed him the biggest slice. I hadn't even gotten mine yet, and there he was, devouring his like it was his last meal. Afterward, Jason's mom commented on how expensive everything looked and asked if she could take leftovers home. My parents, trying to be gracious, said yes, but she didn't take just a little. She packed 2 full Tupperware containers, grabbed handfuls of candy, and even swiped an unopened gift bag meant for another kid. When the party ended, my parents and I stood in the kitchen, staring at empty platters and a gutted cake, completely speechless. That day, I learned a hard truth. Some people will exploit kindness without a second thought. Let's just say the invite list the next year was much shorter.
What was the easiest way you ever made money? Last month I was biking to pick up a package when I saw 2 women in the middle of the street shouting, pulling hair, a full-on brawl. I couldn't resist. I pulled over, leaned against a lamppost, and settled in to watch. Out of nowhere, I felt a nudge behind me. Turning around, I saw a shiny black BMW had just tapped my bike. The driver leaned out and said, "You stopped to watch too?" I laughed. Guess we both got front row seats now. We exchanged a grin and turned back to the action. After a moment, he squinted at the woman in the red dress and said, "I'm betting on her. She's got fire." I shook my head. "No, the one in jeans looks unhinged. She's got this." He nodded. "All right, a pack of smoke says I'm right." I pulled a half-empty pack of cheap cigarettes from my pocket and we shook on it. A few minutes later, he grabbed 2 beers from his car. We cracked them open and kept watching. Sure enough, the woman in jeans threw a wild punch and red dress hit the pavement. He groaned, "Man, I thought she had it in the bag." Just then, a traffic cop rolled up and noticed his bumper still touching my bike. "What's going on here?" the cop asked. He shrugged. "Just a little tap. We've got it under control." Before leaving, he handed me $200 for the damage. The funny part, my bike barely had a scratch. It cost me $20 to fix. A few days later, I got a text from him. "Another fight downtown. Bring smokes." And just like that, I've got a weird side gig watching street fights.